Battle Cat collabs are always a thing that players are excited for. Free rewards, limited units, and unique stages are all the things that can be expected from a standard Battle Cats collab. However, is it worth playing through these collabs? The quick answer is yes. Who doesn't want free stuff? But the problem arises in which collabs are worth your time and which are not a big deal that doesn't affect overall gameplay. When I say something is worth your time, I mean in a sense that playing through an entire collab should yield adequate rewards that can last longer than the collab's lifespan. However, for the purpose of this tier list, you could simply treat it as the priority ranking for what collabs you should play, although you should play all of them if you have the chance. I'm only ranking English collabs with a gacha banner and stages. Comparing something like the World Trigger collab to the likes of Evangelion is very unfair. For this version of the tier list, placement within tiers do matter, and I'll be starting from the bottom tier and work my way up. In other words, starting from the worst collab to go to the best collab. Since placement matters within tiers, there might be segments in which I explain my reasoning. These explanation sections will be marked by a text that says explanation on the top left of the video. These explanation segments are not evaluations of single collabs. And finally, there might also be a tangent section where I state my own opinion which does not affect the rankings. These tangent sections will also be marked at the top left of the video, just like the explanation sections. And one final note, while I do try to be more objective in this version of the tier list, these rankings are still influenced by my opinions and do not reflect the ideology of other Battle Cats tier lists. So with that in mind, let's get started. I know what you're thinking, K tier? Why is Kaneo so low? He's the most useful collab uber. And you'll be right, Kaneo-kun is the most useful collab uber by far. However, the River City collab is a very strange collab. For starters, Kaneo-kun doesn't even have a normal gacha banner like other collabs, instead being a bonus for an 11 roll draw. Plus the fact that his collab stages don't appear in the collaboration section. What I mean by this is that the special stages used for this collab have the red background instead of the purple one. Because of how River City exists in a state of being a collab and not being one, it is very hard for me to determine whether River City should be ranked at all. I mean, does Kaneo really have his own banner and stages at this point? Regardless of being a pseudo collab, as I call it, the River City collab is a below average collab. The stages mainly reward XP and nothing else. Kaneo-kun is an average unit that probably won't be used for anything outside of his ridiculous one-slot cat combo. All you need from the River City collab is Kaneo, which is kind of underwhelming for an entire collab. Is it worth playing the stages? Not really, you can get them easily from XP stages. This does not mean the River City collab is the worst collab. It simply has its own tier because I don't know if the River City collab could fit within the rules I have set for this tier list. If Ponos decides to make this collab function like a regular collab, then the River City collab would at most be a low C tier, mostly due to the cat combo mentioned before. The Metal Slug collab has 2 levels, 4 stages, and units that probably won't see the light of day. This collab offers very little rewards to play, and sadly only exists to flex units that most won't have because this collab barely has any reruns. I would talk more about this collab, but since this collab offers so little, it's easily the worst collab there is. The Crash Fever collab has 3 levels, 11 stages, and 1 decent Uber in the banner. There's really no highlight for this collab other than that this is another collab with little rewards and an Uber that is slightly usable. Thus, it is below average. The Survive Mola Mola collab has 2 levels, 8 stages, a Baron, and the Master of the Pacific! This collab has a little more rewards and gets reruns quite often. However, it's not enough to deserve to go on to the next tier for reasons I'll get into now. Crash Fever and Survive Mola Mola are very similar collabs despite Mola Mola having more content than Crash Fever. This comparison mostly focuses on the two singular Ubers of their respective banners, Mobius and King Mola Mola. On one hand, Mobius is a great Uber that will help players through early game of Battle Cats. However, she will quickly fall out of use due to superior anti-reds that you can get much later into the game, and sometimes even in mid-game. On the other hand, King Mola is a terrible Uber unless you heavily invest in his talents and have gathered a lot of attack orbs, which is much further late game. While it might be a plus that King Mola gains more usability in late game, at this point in the game you probably have much better units that aren't as expensive as King Mola. Basically, both Ubers have rather short lifespans, one being restricted to early game of Battle Cats and the other the late game. However, it is obvious that King Mola is better than Mobius due to the ridiculous talents he gains in late game. The Power Pro Baseball collab has 6 levels, 13 stages, and a decent gacha banner. This is just an average collab with a standard amount of awards and decent Ubers that at their worst are just outclassed but still usable in their gimmicks. Sadly, I believe this is the only collab on this tier list that did not get a rerun. The Ranma 1/2 collab has 2 levels, 10 stages, a Baron, and a decent gacha banner that has a much wider selection. The simplest way to explain this collab is what if the Power Pro collab had more content, since it suffers from the same problems as the Power Pro collab in terms of the gacha units, usable in their own niche but easily outclassed at worst. At least this collab has more stages, including the Baron, and more general rewards unlike the Power Pro collab which mostly gave out free units that aren't really that useful. It really pains me to place it on this tier. The Hatsune Miku collab features 5 levels, 15 stages, 1 Baron, and a kinda decent gacha banner. The banner is arguably worse than Ranma since the range of Ubers goes from a terrible unit to a good unit. However, the Hatsune Miku collab does offer more rewards than Ranma due to this collab having more levels and stages, even if it means trying to beat Snow Miku 3 Crown just for completionist's sake. For this reason, the Hatsune Miku collab is ever so slightly better than a Ranma collab. Hey Pono, if you're listening, you should add Teto Kasane and I will immediately place this collab in S tier. The Big Kuriman collab has 4 levels, 12 stages, 2 Barons, and another decent gacha banner that includes a legend rare this time. The gacha banner does suffer from the same problem as the Ranma and Power Pro collab. I only really heard 3 of these Ubers being talked about, and who are the rest of these guys? However, the stages give plentiful rewards due to having 2 Barons instead of 1, allowing this collab to be in the highest place within this tier. I know I've been getting through these collabs rather quickly, but the reason is that these collabs I have mentioned don't have much to talk about. However, the next tiers will have much longer descriptions and explanations. The Fate collab has 7 levels, 18 stages, a Baron, and a good gacha banner that has Ubers that range from decent to some of the best Ubers. I don't need to say more because Saber exists in this banner. In all seriousness, I don't need to say much about this collab since there are plentiful rewards and the banner has a good selection of Ubers. It is only at the bottom of A tier since there are other collabs that offer a lot more than Fate. Finally, the fighters can go back to fighting the streets again knowing that I have put the Street Fighter collab in A tier. Or whatever, I really can't do this joke. The Street Fighter collab has 32 levels, 66 stages, a Baron, and underwhelming banners. Honestly, this collab would have been the best collab currently if the banner had a better range of units. The range of units ranges from trash to outclassed by regular Uber counterparts. However, this collab is one of the few that features 2 banners, so you could choose what Ubers you want to go for at least. Unfortunately, Team Red banner is better to roll on than Team Blue banner in my opinion. The reason why this collab is so high up in this tier list is because the collab has the most amount of rewards out of all of the collabs. The stages are not too difficult to beat, allowing any player to majorly benefit when this collab comes around. The Merc Storia collab has 21 levels, a Baron, and the banner with the most amount of limited units. but has a wide range that ranges from unusable to the only unit you need. Mercstoria does have some of the best rewards out of any collab, since there is plenty to get and Healer is just a game-changing unit, being used in a lot of cheese strategies. However, the banner is underwhelming for a collab this size, as you only really need to care about 4 units from this banner, those being Nono, Eyewaltz, Yuvins, and Mystica. For this collab to have the most limited units within a single banner, it is somewhat depressing that only 4 of the units are amazing units, while the rest are just outright terrible or decent at best. Just to reiterate, this does not affect rankings at all, but I want to talk about these types of barons for a short bit and how terrible they are. Feel free to skip to this part if you want me to get back to ranking PP, AP, and S tier. I don't know if there's an official name for these types of baron, but I like to call them everyone is here barons, since these barons feature most gacha units as enemies as bosses for these barons. I have only decided to bring this up now since we have covered all the collabs that use these types of barons, those being Ranma, Miku, Bikuriman, Fate, and Mercstoria. These types of barons are just very lazily designed and are really just annoying to fight. The bosses usually have boosted stats that greatly differ from the actual units, usually so that they are bosses for their own respective stages. Pono simply slap these collab bosses all in the same baron, which leads to gameplay that's not fun enough. Yeah, I would love to play a stage where the boss is a rusher and every other boss is a backliner with insane stats. The Neon Genesis Evangelion collab has 7 levels, 17 stages, a baron, with 2 banners, being the only other collab to have 2 banners. Unlike the Street Fighter collab, the range of these units on these banners ranges from being worse than their regular Uber counterpart to being some of the best Ubers in the game overall. However, it still has the same problem as the Street Fighter collab where one banner is just superior to the other, that being the AVMX banner since the best Ubers are only available in that specific banner. While this collab does offer more rewards than the average collab, this collab is notorious for having some of the hardest stages specifically designed to be a one-to-one recreation of Shinji's suffering throughout the show. While it is possible to do the toughest stages without Angel Killer and the You Will Find Happiness cat combo, these stages are designed in mind for these specific abilities. I know I did not account for difficulty for any other collab, maybe except for Street Fighter, but I felt like Evangelion's difficulty is very much apparent for a lot of players, regardless of where you are in the game, which is why I mentioned it. If you want the best chances to even get all the rewards from the Evangelion collab, and ignoring super rares, you will need a unit with Angel Killer, which is the most common in the AVMX banner. This is also another reason why this banner is just superior to the other, since the Angel banner only consists of Raytama and Ava 13 who have Angel Killer. Both Ubers are not that great, and from my experience, Raytama can't even tank against Angels that well due to her low HP. Before we stop talking about the Evangelion collab, I want to mention something about the promotional material for this collab. What did Professor Cat mean by this? Did he mean that France had its base change to be in theme with Evangelion? The Madoka Magica collab has 6 levels, 30 stages, a baron, and a pretty good banner. The reason why this is a pretty good banner is because the range of units ranges from decent Ubers to having 2 of the best collab Ubers in the game. While this collab does have slightly less levels than other collabs in A tier, the rewards are standard and Cubicot is a decent reward to get as a plus. However, this collab also suffers from the same problems as the Evangelion collab, with most stages being centered around the Witch Killer ability but to a lesser extent. The banner is entirely composed of units with Witch Killer, meaning regardless of who you get, you will have an easier time with any of the stages. Plus, you can beat the strongest witch of all time by just throwing a few rocks at it. Although if you do get Homer or Nagisa, you will face some restrictions as you cannot use those 2 units for 2 specific stages.
Killer fish from San Diego.
I'll be honest, I don't like how these abilities are implemented, especially for collabs. Since abilities such as Witch Killer and Angel Killer will not be used outside of their respective collabs, Ponos just has the urge to make these abilities relevant just for these collab stages. This just leads to insanely unbalanced stages, which prevents most players from completing the collab unless they wait for guaranteed or get really lucky with their rolls. As stated before, Ponos designed stages with the killer abilities in mind, and the Barons are the most obvious attempts at trying to make this ability relevant. These Barons usually require the extra large combo to go along with them to make the stages easier. However, the reason why Madoka Collab is a whole tier up compared to Evangelion, despite how Evangelion has a lot more content than Madoka, is the fact that Madoka's killer problem is not as bad as Evangelion. As mentioned before, every Uber in the Madoka banner has Witch Killer, meaning that any Uber you get can help you with these collab stages. Evangelion, on the other hand, does not have banners that consist entirely of Angel Killers. You could get stuck with Shinji Cat or Moon-based operators, which would make no difference in helping you defeat the collab stages. Lastly, both Madoka and Evangelion have usable Ubers outside of their respective collabs, so this tier difference is mostly based on the difficulty of their collabs due to this killer problem. Who could have seen this coming? The Shometsu Toshi / Annihilation City / Afterloss, shout out to the 2 fans who will murder me for calling this Afterloss, collab has 5 levels, 18 stages, a Baron, and a great banner. Geek Cat is one of the best, if not the best, limited super rare a player could get, and the Ubers in the banner all have true forms, talents, and are good with the traits that they target. The rare cat really does not matter. Maybe more collabs in the future will gain talents, but the closest collab to getting talents would be Power Pro. Since all the Ubers in that banner have true forms. However, it's unlikely that Power Pro will ever have a rerun. This collab had plenty of reruns, and if the pattern continues, the rewards will rack up. Additionally, this is the first time Ponos decided to design an actual Baron for a collab event. Although the rewards were nerfed, it gives a good amount of pat fruits and XP currently. The only flaw with this collab is that the rewards are pretty standard for an average collab. There's not a lot of rewards like the collabs in A tier. However, the gacha banner and units carry this collab to be one of the best collabs currently in Battle Cats. Just like I said in the beginning of the video, you should try to play all the collabs if you can. It's free stuff. This tier list is simply just comparing the content within each collab and determining which collab is the best in terms of the content they offer. Honestly, I think this tier list will easily get outdated as reruns are getting more common and Ponos might introduce new collabs in the future. Because of this tier list should not be taken entirely seriously, since give or take a few months and this video will already be outdated. Regardless if this video ages like milk, thank you for your support. I enjoy Battle Cat collabs and making videos about it, and I'm glad that these videos are some of my most popular videos. And all I have to say is thanks for watching this video too.